where we could be alone between city lights. We don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody out there in the beautiful world of FPV? Thank you so much for being here on a Sunday, a beautiful Sunday day. It is. We just had the last freeze of the year, I think, and now it's spring, baby. You got no excuse. Throw your tiny whoops in the trash. Get your 5 inches out. Go rip some bowls. Am I right? Oh, it's good to be here. It's good to be here with you and my Diet Coke, the drink of productive people, right? Who drinks Coke? People, so people who are tailgating at a football game drink Coke. Thin, beautiful businesswomen drink Diet Coke, and I know which one of those I am. If you hear birds in the background, it's because the window's open. So that's what the outside sounds like. No, that joke is for gamers. FPV people do go outside. We don't like to walk around in it, but we do go outside. Oh man, they're loud too. Oh well, you're just gonna have to deal with it. Oh. So I guess you guys know what the big secret that RadioMaster was going to drop. Don't you? Yeah? You found out now, right? What do you think? What do you think? The JB edition. The JB edition. TX16S. If you wanted the radio in purple, now you can have it. For people who like black and purple. But the real reason I did this, And it turns out it's a case of great minds think alike. The real reason I did this, because I've often said I don't want to just slap my name on a product, cash a check, and leave. I never do that. Well, I won't say I never have done that ever in my life. There have been some cases where, well, anyway, that's not important. For the most part, I try to do that. There's always something I contribute to it. And in this case, I wanted to see a RadioMaster TX16S with an internal Express LRS module. And one of the ways that I try to get things done in the hobby is I say to a manufacturer, if you do this, I'll put my name on it. And then people will want to buy it more than they otherwise would, because for some reason you guys want to buy things with my name on it. Thank you. It's an honor. It turns out that RadioMaster already was going that direction. They already had a radio like this in the works. So it turns out I didn't need to do that to make this happen. But I'm still very, this is a great radio, and I'm very pleased and honored to have one with my name on it. Comes with the JB sound pack preloaded. Anyway, you can watch the video on my channel if you want to know more. I was tempted, but it wasn't my style to do a video. I mean, like, what some people might have done is just do a release video talking about their radio and how great it is. And I thought the most valuable thing I could do for you guys was to run down all the different versions of the TX16S so you could pick the one you like the best, and maybe it's not mine. So that video is up. Thank you so much for watching it. It does not have crotch lighting, Mads Tech. It does not. I thought about maybe putting the LED lights in as a special thing, but it didn't get done. So Linux Barista says, does that mean no more Ghost? You going all in on Express LRS? No. So let me just be clear about this. I have Ghost in some of my quads. I have Express LRS in some of my quads. There are things I like about Ghost. There are things I like about Express LRS. There are things that piss me off about both of them in some ways. I think it would be... There have been times in the past where I went all in on one particular product. Like, I remember there was a time when I settled on a certain frame, the frame I used in my first JB Perfect Freestyle build. And for a while, I pretty much flew nothing but that frame. And in retrospect, like, there came a time when I stopped using that frame and started trying a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, holy shit, there's all these other companies out here whose products I've been kind of ignoring because I've just got like my frame that I like to use. And I didn't think that was where I wanted my head to be at. Now, to be fair, like, the TX16S is my daily driver radio. And I try other radios, but there's very little chance that I'm going to like one of them better than the TX16S. So, but as far as control links go, I have mostly Crossfire in bind and fly quads that I get sent for review. Ghost is my go-to for my larger quads, mostly. And Express LRS is mostly my go-to for smaller quads because the EP2 receiver is so wonderful. But the reason that I wanted this radio to have Express LRS in it is two reasons. Number one, FreeSky is a pain in the ass. Let's do this Express LRS thing. And number two, sort of a following on number one, I really want to see Express LRS become more beginner, more the norm for beginners. It's inexpensive. It's a little bit of a hassle in some ways, granted, but FreeSky's a little bit of a hassle in some ways. So I was like, let's do this. And at the time that I said that, I didn't know that RadioMaster was already planning on releasing a TX16S with an ELRS module inside. I was like, why is no one doing this? At the time that this idea got started, no one was doing a radio with an internal ELRS module. And since the time that I started working on this with RadioMaster, everyone's done one. So apparently it was already going to happen, but that was my motivation anyway. Anyway, let's see here. Any rumors about AG01 gimbals for the Zorro, Jory FPV? I can confirm RadioMaster told me they were doing AG01 gimbals for the Zorro. And I believe those gimbals will also fit in the TX12, but I don't know that for sure. I can tell you they told me they were doing it and said, do you want them when we get them? And now, of course, things have been delayed due to lockdowns in China and other nonsense, but yeah. Anyway. The Tracer is the control link I'm least interested in these days, frankly. What's your opinion on 3D printed quadcopters? Asks Jack Brown. Wait, before you get that, let's just do my little welcome to the live stream here, guys. Then we'll get Jack Brown's question. Here's what's up, guys. I'm gonna be reading your chats and taking your questions here in the YouTube chat. I'm going to be paying a lot of attention here. Oh my God, why was I was on the wrong channel. Hello, patrons. This is my Discord server. These people here all pay as little as $2 a month. More, it's up to them how to pick the amount. And they, as a part of that, they'd get to feel good for supporting me, of course. But more importantly, they get to hang out here in the Discord server and hang out with all the other beautiful people. So I'll be taking their questions as well. Thank you. Thank you, Danny DeVito. Always welcome. Hot Dog Party, always welcome. So if you guys want to ask questions, I'll be taking them from the YouTube chat, from the Discord server, and you can hit the $ down here and leave a super chat if you want to make sure. I like this question from Otis, which I will be getting to in just a little bit. So, what was the question? Now, what was the question I was going to answer? TX12 update, HO1 for gimbals. Oh, no. Well, I've lost it. No, where was it? Damn it. I'm so sorry. Jack Brown, what's your opinion on 3D printed quadcopters? My opinion is that once you get past about 3-inch at most, that it's pointless for the most part. Down in the Cinewhoop size, it is feasible to 3D print a frame. You still will get better results. It's going to be heavier and weaker than an injection molded frame or a carbon fiber frame, but it is possible to do. If you look at things like the Dave C 18650 cell, what is it, the Explorer, the 1S frame, Dave C, that's 3D printed. Dave C managed to design it. It gets the job done. But once you get up to about 3 inches, I think at most, the problems with most 3D printing technologies outweigh their advantages. So one of the mistakes people make with 3D printing a frame is that they try to 3D print a frame just like a carbon fiber frame. So they 3D print literal sheets or plates, and it doesn't work. Carbon fiber is very stiff and very tough, and when you 3D print plastic in that same way, it is not as stiff, it's not as tough, it's brittle, it has terrible resonance problems. So the first rookie mistake people make when they try to 3D print frames is they try and 3D print a copy of a carbon fiber frame. It simply doesn't work. So then the next thing people do is they design a 3D printed frame to play to the strengths of 3D printing. And you can design a frame in all these organic shapes with tubes and trusses, right? And I've seen people who have even used like organic design to remove sections based on the stress distribution. And you can end up with this 3D printed frame that is kind of the best it could possibly be. And you still generally don't have something that is as strong, lightweight, and stiff as a carbon fiber frame. You can design it to be stiff enough to not have bad resonance problems, but then it tends to be heavier. And in an extreme case, I've seen 3D printed frames, like for a 5-inch, that had decent resonance characteristics and were not ridiculously heavy, but were still somewhat heavy. And then the problem is the first time you crash, it just splits in half. Now, the exception to this is if you do materials like carbon fiber nylon, okay? Carbon fiber nylon is an incredibly tough material. It's strong, it's tough. I have seen carbon fiber nylon frames that I thought were usable. But here's the problem with that. The problem with that then is you usually end up with this one piece solid frame, and as soon as you break an arm, and let's face it, everything breaks eventually when you crash it enough times into a wall at 70 miles an hour. Quadcopter frames will break. It's just a question of how fast they break and where they break. And with the 3D printed frames, because they're usually one-piece design to play to the strengths of 3D printing, when something breaks, you have to gut the whole thing to repair it and print a whole new frame. And it's just like, what problem are you trying to solve by going to a 3D printed frame? Carbon fiber is a very, very good material for quadcopter frames in the 4 to 7, maybe 10-inch range. It's very good. So, now I'll tell you, the problem that you're trying to solve is that you can't design, because you don't have a CNC mill. You have a 3D printer. Now, some people out there have a CNC mill. More power to you. But you're trying to design your own frame and be able to do the iterative design that 3D printing is so good at. That's cool, but in many ways, you're always going to end up with a worse frame, especially if you have not made the investment into like a hardened nozzle and you're printing carbon fiber nylon or some other more exotic material. Now, if you're 3D printing and you've got like a resin printer, not an FDM, but an SL, I don't know. If you're 3D printing and you've got a really high-end, like $15,000 printer where you're basically just laying down plastic, that's different. But we're talking more about home stuff. Anyway, there you go. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Redbeard the Pilot says 3D printing is meant for prototypes, not really production. I mean, that's true to a degree, Redbeard. There absolutely are. I mean, you know this, I'm sure. There are a ton of people out there who are running 3D printer farms and using it for production because the cost of getting an injection mold made doesn't fit what they're trying to do. So, I mean, there is a place for 3D printing in production. But there certainly also are parts that are not suitable for FDM 3D printing, and especially printing on more conventional materials like TPU, PLA, PETG, and so forth, versus exotic materials like carbon nylon and so forth. So, Bib FPV says printed resin is way too brittle. Yeah, Bib, I didn't mean... unfortunately, I don't know a ton about the high-end. What's the alternative process to FDM? It's the process that resin printers use. There are high-end printers that basically produce plastic parts that look like they were injection molded. Those printers can even do metal sintering. You know, there's really high-end printers that can produce, like, basically finished plastic parts. And obviously that's a SLA. Thank you, Charles Stevenson. I knew it was SL something. Anyway. So there's high-end SLA printers that do more exotic materials and can essentially produce any plastic part that you could produce with injection molding. But they're in the $15,000 and up. SLS? Not SLA? I thought it was SLA, but SLA didn't sound right. SLA is service level agreement. That's not right. SLS is for metal printing. Okay. Anyway, let's not talk about things that I don't know about and make me look dumb. Like I saw a 3D printer at GetFPV's secret lab. GetFPV has in their office a secret lab where they work on prototypes and weird shit. And one of the things they had in there was a high-end 3D printer that they said could print props. So they could test different prop designs. And I was like, what do you mean you're 3D printing props? And they're like, it's just that good. It's just producing a finished plastic part. I'm like, what? Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, no, it's $25,000 or whatever. I was like, oh, I see. It's not a 3D printer. Like, anyway. SLA is resin printing, single layer additive. FDM is fused deposition modeling, manufacturing. And SLS is selective laser sintering. Okay. Alrighty. So, there you go. Let's get some of these super chats out of the way. We're only 20 minutes into the stream. Time to acknowledge some of the people who hit that super chat button and get their questions. Otis, thank you for a $5 super chat. Toolkit RC P200 Mini. Should I cancel my order due to Toolkit's charger issues? Otis, I can tell you my P200 power supply, it's still right back there on my desk. You can just barely see it, like right there. I use the P200 regularly. It's been solid for me. So that's all I can tell you. Toolkit RC seems to have some issues with their chargers. Do those issues extend to the P200? I haven't heard, like, if you go to my review of the P200 on YouTube, you could see, just look and see if there's a bunch of comments from people saying, it died on me. My general impression is that the P200 power supply is relatively solid. So. Chaz Williams says, how do I set up Betaflight for beginners so the throttle control is kicked back some? Chaz, I do have a video about that, but I'll be happy to just show you right here. Wait, I said I was doing super chats. Damn it. I got to stop taking free questions. We got to reward the people who... No. I'm joking. Chaz, what you want to do is in Betaflight, go to the PID tuning tab, and then you're going to go to the rate profile settings, and then you're going to go to, there you go, go to throttle limit and set it to scale, and throttle limit percent and set it to, 80% or 60. I don't think I would go much below 75 or 60%, or the damn quad may not even fly, but knock that down however much it takes for you to feel like you've got control. That's how to do it. All right, continuing the super chats. Craig Mitchell, thank you for a $5 super chat. Motor's spinning, the quad is flying, but the LEDs on the arms are not lighting up. Any ideas? Tiny sleds. Never had this happen before. Craig, are they race wire or are they individual LEDs? I will try to keep... The answer is different. If it's race wire, then those LEDs should be powered up from the motor signals themselves. If the motors are spinning, then clearly the electricity is going through the motors, so then why would the LEDs not light up? I don't know. It's got to be... I mean, theoretically, if you had, if it was a 1S quad and the voltage was too low, the LEDs might not light up. I don't know. Yeah. On the other hand, if it's like programmable LEDs, then probably it's just not set up right, or the LED strip is not working. Mr. Grimm says, blown LEDs. Four arms worth of blown LEDs are question. I don't know about that. So, Craig, if you're talking about programmable LEDs, then it's probably something to do with your setup, which would be difficult to dive into here on the chat. If it is race wire LEDs, then it's hard to imagine. They're just wired in parallel with the motors, and they should just light up when the motors spin. Jorge Navarro FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. No message, apparently. Message retracted. All right, well, we'll keep that to yourself. Marcus, thank you for 50 Norwegian kroner. Just bought the Nazgul Evoke Vista, but I want to add Crossfire. Do I need to remove R1 and ground from the air unit, or can I just switch it in Betaflight? So, Marcus, you can have two receivers connected to two different UARTs at the same time. You can only use one of the receivers. you need to go into the ports tab and pick which UART your receiver is on. So if you need to use UART 1 for Crossfire, then yes, you do need to disconnect the S-Bus wire. But if you're going to use a different UART because it's an F7 processor and you got a ton of spare UARTs, it's fine to leave the S-Bus wire connected to R1 as long as you're using some other UART number for Crossfire. Mythic Lion Man, thanks for $5 Canadian. FC randomly reboots midair. Ouch. ESC and air unit do not. Okay, that's good information. So that tells us if your flight controller reboots in midair, in other words, you probably hear doot doot, but you do not hear doot 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 doot. You just hear the doot doot, the last two. That tells you your flight controller reboot. And if you have analog video, then you would see the OSD, the logo again. So your flight controller is rebooting in midair, but your ESC and your air unit do not. That tells you, the fact that your ESC and your air unit don't reboot tells you that battery voltage is still going to the quad. Like you're not just losing your battery entirely. Now the air unit not rebooting, if the air unit is getting power from the flight controller, that's also useful information. Because that tells you that the flight controller is also not losing power. You follow? I'm going to guess that your air unit is plugged into your flight controller, and therefore the fact that the air unit doesn't reboot says that your flight controller is still getting power. So your flight controller is rebooting, but it is not losing power. That's the sort of deductive chain that we've got so far. Replace the flight controller. Direct solder to the ESC. It still happens. Crap. Okay. It's not the let's think it through. It's not the ESC. Mythic Lion Man, is the air unit plugged into the flight controller? Because if the air unit is not plugged into the flight controller, then the whole flight controller could be losing power. Maybe there's a problem with the plug or the soldering or something. Tell me whether the air unit is. Yeah. What flight controller is it? Those are two. Crunch. Good information. Good guess that he's browning out his 5-volt regulator. That is plausible. Mythic Lion Man says, yes, the air unit is plugged into the flight controller. What flight controller is it? Is it a FetTech G4 with that 600 milliamp regulator? We talked about this last week. Mythic Lion Man, tell us what flight controller it is. I will monitor the chat. Lone Wolf McQuad, thank you for a $10 super chat. Very generous super chat. Appreciate that. Building a 5-inch freestyle quad, 520 to 540 all up weight. That's impressive. You are gonna struggle to get a 5-inch with a GoPro or without. Without a GoPro, easy. Not too hard. With a GoPro, damn near impossible. I assume you're talking about without a GoPro. 2207, 1950 kV motors, flying at 5,000 to 10,000 feet above sea level. Can you discuss prop options for this setup? Okay, so at higher altitude, there are two things that you want to do. Number one, you want to use higher kV motors. So 1950 kV is about where I think I would start at that altitude. Now, I want to say, if like Mr. Steele has discussed the changes he makes when he flies at high altitude, and like if somebody like him with a lot of experience, like if Blunty chimes in, who lives in Denver, and he says something that contradicts me here, then totally listen to people who with actual experience flying at high altitude. But I'm going to give you my thoughts, and since we're all here, and that's what you're here for. But I think 1950 kV, 2000 kV, maybe even a little higher kV on 6S, I think you're in the ballpark of where you would want to be. Because that's going to make more RPM and make up for that thinner air. The other thing you could do is you can use higher pitch props. And Mr. Steele has talked about how he's got the S3, the S4, and the S5 props. And my recollection is that the S5 props, which are higher pitch, are more suitable for high altitude. If your frame permits it, you can also go to like a 5.1 or even a 5.25 inch prop, although selection is a little more limited at 5.25 inch. So you're going to want to use a little bit higher pitch prop and a higher KV motor, and you're going to be fine. Going back to Mythic Lion Man there, he says the first flight controller was a Seal Racing F7 HD, and the replacement was a Speedy B F7. Damn, so they're two different. Okay, so you have two completely different flight controllers. I don't think you're browning out your 5-volt regulator. I think that there's a problem with the power supply to the flight controller. But here's what's weird. You said that the air unit does not reboot. So the flight controller can't be losing power. It can't be, or the air unit would reboot. Oh, wow. And two completely different flight controllers, not even a second one of the same model. I would be mighty tempted to suspect the ESC, although I'm having a hard time imagining how the power supply to the flight controller could be. Like, let's say that the power supply of the flight controller, the voltage drops or something. The air unit is running off a 9-volt regulator. The flight controller is running off the 5-volt regulator. So if the voltage sagged low enough to brown out the 5-volt regulator, how would the 9-volt regulator not get... Oh, I got to guess. Mythic Lion Man, are you running like a shitload of LEDs off your 5-volt rail? You see where I'm going? Have you loaded down the 5-volt rail so much that the 5-volt regulator is browning out and shutting down, but the 9-volt regulator is fine? I mean, you're going to get back in the chat and you're going to say, no, I'm not doing that. But that's a good like guess. VBAT from ESC to the flight controller is the problem, says Mr. Grimm. No, it can't be. VBAT from ESC to the FC has to be fine, otherwise the air unit would shut down. Right? The only other peripheral is GPS. Could the flight controller, two separate flight controllers, could the flight controller be overheating? Jack Brown, good guess. Mr. Grimm, VBAT from ESC to flight controller is not the problem. Explain to me how the air unit could stay powered up when it is plugged into the flight controller. Mr. Grimm, how could VBAT be interrupted, causing the flight controller to reboot, but the air unit stays powered up? Explain that. It's pretty odd. Big Data Pimp, he confirmed that the air unit is plugged into the flight controller in both cases. If the air unit was powered straight from VBAT on the ESC, then this whole thing would make more sense. Bad for Life says the 9-volt rail stays powered, the 5-volt rail browns out. Yeah, but how? What would cause that? Mr. Graham, the air unit is connected to the flight controller. Keep up. The air unit is connected to the flight controller. That's the point. Okay. Mr. Graham finally agrees with me. Mythic Lion Man thinks it might be heat related, since it takes longer to reset now at 7 degrees ambient than it did in the fall. Is it like stuffed into a canopy or something and potentially overheating? Yeah. All right, Mythic Lion Man, you stumped us a little bit, so I think we're going to move on. What would I do next? I don't think it's the ESC. Afternoon, Phantom FPV. Good to see you, man. Mouse FPV says some ESCs will have the regulator on the ESC and pass through, like the T-Motor F55A Pro 2. Yeah, but the CL Racing and Speedy B don't do that, do they? He has CL Racing and Speedy B flight controller. I don't think they do that, but that's a good point. Oscillation Andy thinks it's a bad voltage regulator on two separate flight controllers. Big Data Pimp says, are you sure the air unit isn't rebooting? He would get the DJI logo if the air unit was rebooting. 100%. And Zeklo says, overdrawing current on the 5-volt regulator would cause it to cut out. That's true, but what would be doing that? He says he's only got a GPS and nothing else running on the 5-volt regulator. Mr. Graham, 2 separate flight controllers, though. 2 separate flight controllers, same issue. Crunked, I kind of agree with Crunked that replacing the ESC is the next step. It doesn't seem like the evidence points to the ESC. It's hard to imagine how that's true, but it might be worth investigating the ESC just because that's nowhere else to go at this point. Oscillation Andy, you're saying he has 2 separate bad 5-volt regulators on 2 separate brand new, different make and model flight controllers. Seems questionable. Not impossible. Short circuit on the GPS leads. Now that's good. If you have a 5-volt peripheral with a short in it, it would short the 5-volt rail to ground. Like, let's imagine that the wires going to the GPS got pinched in a standoff or something, and the 5-volt in the ground, the 5-volt wire is shorting to the frame, but only like periodically. At that point, your 5-volt rail would shut down. And swapping the flight controller, do you see that wouldn't fix that problem? So I would inspect all the wires on the 5-volt rail, receiver, GPS, etc. All right, we're moving on. Mythic Lion Man definitely got their $5 out of this discussion. Madstack, thank you for a £9 super chat. Really appreciate your support and also what you do for the community. Thank you so much for your donation, man. Am I a Madstack? Am I a patron of Madstack? I better be. I better be. If I'm not, I am not a Madstack Tutorials. That's him, right? Is that Ian? I believe that's got to be Ian. I'm going to sign up for his patron right now. Join. $5 a month. I try to join just about everybody. This Patreon that I can. Interesting. Confirm. $5. Done. All right, I am now a patron of Madstech. Good. Mustang Pilot 1, thank you for $5 in the super chat. Interested in a mid-range setup for a friend, but using DJI transmitter. Should they buy Crossfire or ELRS for control, running air unit or Caddx for VTX? I would steer somebody to ELRS over Crossfire today. ELRS is more technologically challenging in terms of setup, but I think it has better... more performance options than Crossfire, and at the end of the day, I mean, Crossfire is good. One of the best things about ELRS is that when Crossfire is out of stock for a month and you can't find it anywhere, there's like 7 different ELRS manufacturers. You'll always be able to get something. It's a blessing and a curse, since sometimes it's crappy. But I would steer you to ELRS over Crossfire today, unless ease of use is your #1 concern. That's my take, Mustang Pilot. Ghost Rider, thanks for €10. Matthew Gunton, thanks for $5 Canadian. Thanks for all your help over a few weeks. My question, is there a way to get HD0 on my DJI goggles? No, there is not. HD0 requires an HDMI input. DJI goggles does not have an HDMI input. And if you were to use an HDMI to AV converter, then you could do it. That's your question. But the latency would be a deal breaker. So no. Kuzga, thank you for 50 Swedish kroner. Does anyone know how to fix MSP communication failed when using SpeedyB Adapter 3? I've messaged support, but they haven't been helpful. For SpeedyB to work, you need to have MSP enabled. Oh, no, wait. No. It's SpeedyB just uses the USB port, right? No. I mean, presumably the same flight controller works with the USB plug, right? I'm sorry, Kuzga. Thank you for your donation. I don't have a great answer for you there. If it works on the USB plug, but it doesn't work with the SpeedyB adapter, and it's just that one quad, or is it all your quads? That's a weird one. I don't have an immediate answer for you there, because if you think about it, the quad has no idea that it's SpeedyB. The quad just sees a USB connection. Thomas and Stella Galanu, thank you for €2. 2 modes, 2 drones. Crossfire binds to either. Auto. Why? I understand why you kept it short, because the €2 super chat only gave you 50 characters. But I don't fully understand your question. Can you elaborate on your question? Crossfire binds to either. Well, I mean, if you have 2 drones that are bound to the same module, it'll bind to either of them, whichever one powers up. You're welcome to leave your elaboration in the chat, and I'll try and keep an eye out for it. Mr. Graham wants me to pull the questions onto screen. I can't do that. I can't do that because Chrome updated and it broke the extension that I was using to put the questions on screen. So I can't do that right now. I may be able to do it in the future, but not this time. Okay, here I have 2 modes on my radio for 2 drones. 2 models. You have 2 models on your radio. I see, for 2 drones. Crossfire binds to either automatically. Does this make sense? Yes. Okay. So, Hash, what you need to do is you need to use the model match function. Hold on. So I can't easily show you this right now. When you go to bind the quad, there is a receiver number parameter. Receiver number in the model setup page in OpenTX. And when you bind the quad, if you change the model number first, or the receiver number first, so you set one of the quads, the model is receiver number 0. One of the quads, the model is receiver number 1. Okay? And then you bind them. You have to bind them after changing the receiver number, because it is communicated to the receiver. You are receiver number 1. You are receiver number 0. At that point, model 1 will only work with quad number 1. Model 2 will only work with quad number 2. However, the default is that receiver number is set to 0. And so when you bind the quads, they all are receiver number 0, and whichever one powers up first will work with any model you have loaded. So that's how to work around that problem. The receiver number function, or the model match function. $3474 in the regular YouTube chat asks, when I switched Acro mode on a Cinewhoop, it automatically goes into a dive. Does this sound like stick calibration? Yes, it does. It sounds like your sticks are not recentering. Someone trimmed the quad in angle mode using the trims on the controller, for example. And since the sticks aren't centered, when you switch to Acro mode, it immediately pitches forward. What you have to do is you have to center the channels at 1500 in the receiver tab, and then use the accelerometer trim function in Betaflight to trim the accelerometer. Nick Sebring wants to know, what motors do you recommend for a 7-inch 6S cinematic quad? I'm looking at Zing 2604. Nick, I always like to go with people who are smarter than me, of which sometimes you are one, by the way. But since you're asking me the question, I'm going to just... my understanding is that for 7-inch props, like, the go-to motor is the Brother Hobby Avenger 2806.5. Now, that's not the only motor in the world, but that's the baseline. Or there's the FPV Cycle 30mm motor, which I think is even a little bit bigger. So and I don't like fly 7-inch all the time. I have some experience flying 7-inch, but not a ton. So I always just try and remember what other smart people are doing and keep that in the back of my head. And my baseline for 7-inch is that you want about a 28 to a 30 millimeter sized motor. Now, Nick, you're suggesting a 2604. So we've gone from 2806 or 30 and change to a 2604, a significantly smaller motor. Now, here's the thing. Everybody knows that you can fly a 7-inch quad on 2207 motors. You can do it. And especially for cinematic flying where you're not going to be doing massive flippy flops, maybe you'll get away with it. But if you're flying cinematic, you also potentially are going to be carrying a heavier camera, a larger battery. I think I would not go with a motor that small. To me, 2604 feels too small, and I would start with something in the 28 to 30 millimeter range. Chateau asks, I am 15 years old. I have an EV800DM. Do you think it's worth it to buy the Skyo 4L goggle, or is it too old? No, Skyo 4L is a great goggle. It's a great goggle. If it's in your budget, it's going to give you one of the best. The screen, the LCOS screen is not going to be quite as like bright and colorful and saturated as an OLED screen, but it's going to be a huge step up from the EV800DM. And overall, that's a great goggle, and it will work with new tech like HD0 if that's what you're looking for. Okay. Chills and Dreams asks, if I pair the Eachine EV300D with Sharkbite, will the latency of the Eachine affect the signal or quality of the Sharkbite? The EV300D, if I remember correctly, had a little bit of a latency problem that was never fully fixed. So yeah, it's going to add latency. I mean, that's your call whether you care about that, but it will add a little bit of latency. Gamma Gonad says the FPV Cycle 30mm motor is 3107 and is much better than the Brother Hobby. I mean, I believe you. I don't specifically recommend the Brother Hobby, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but the Brother Hobby 2806.5 was, for a time, it was like the go-to 7-inch motor. And even if you're not doing massive flippy flops, the larger motor will have more torque and probably be more efficient than a smaller motor. For any given prop, there is a certain motor size that is optimal, in that it gives enough torque to sort of comfortably spin the motor at its cruising RPM. And then if you're doing massive flippy flops and need rapid acceleration, you need an even bigger motor than that to give you enough torque. But if a motor is too small, it will be higher in its, It'll draw more amps. It'll need to work harder to generate the torque just to spin the motor at cruise, and it'll draw more amps and generate more heat. Okay? In addition, a smaller motor will build up heat because it has less thermal mass and it has less surface area for cooling. And as magnets get hot, they demagnetize and you lose power, which then means the motor has to run faster and creates a feedback loop where it heats up more. And basically, there's a sweet spot for the motor size, where even if you're just cruising, you actually get more efficiency and more power. You get more of everything. You might think, well, I'm going to go to a bigger motor and it's going to give me more power, but it's also going to draw a lot more current. And there is a point where that happens, where you leave the sweet spot and now your motor's too big and you have extra weight and so forth that you don't need. But for 7-inch, around 28 to 31 millimeters seems to be the sweet spot, where you're getting great efficiency, great performance. That's where you really want to be. Okay. I want to show you guys something I've been up to. let me find a good video. So, okay, we don't need this. Oh, there we go. So this guy came to visit me. He emailed me. He said, saw you talking about the FPV playground in Vanover's video up in Portland, I think it is, where they had all these wooden structures in the trees for Vanover to flippy flop around. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I'd like to do that. And he said, hey, I got a road trip coming up soon. I could come through Knoxville, and I do that kind of stuff. I was like, yeah, okay, you know. I was like, yeah, let's figure out the details. So he showed up, and he's been hanging out at my house for the last week, and he built this thing that you see here. And so I got a video coming out about it, but now I should say, I should make all the necessary prerequisite excuses for my shitty flying. It was, I wasn't feeling good that day. The sun was in my eyes. My quadcopter was not working right. The PIDs were wrong, and so forth. But that out of the way, check this thing out. Is this freaking amazing or what? Let me turn the volume down real quick because I don't want to blow you guys out. Yeah, I would normally edit this to only show you the good stuff. Oh, that's not bad, though. I'm doing okay. Oh, this was a good flight. Check this thing out. My hands were cold. Exactly, Mike Bergman. The sun was in my eyes is my favorite. Since your friggin' goggles are on, there's no excuse. Oh, no, this was an okay flight. This was, I must have been, you know, in the zone here. This was an okay flight. I I don't know why in my head these power loops are so much bigger. Like, look how high I got. I punched way too high. I'm still not dialed in on it, but it's so freaking cool, isn't it? Whoop, hello. Oh, okay. Nope. That one didn't work. This guy busted his ass. He's been working on this for like 3 days. I helped a little. Ooh, what was that? That was pretty good. So I'm just feeling it out. By the time I actually make the video, I'll only show you the good stuff. There's a lot of potential here, though, isn't there? This quad is the Gepar C Mark V. I'm going to be working on a review of it. And get my power loops dialed in, right? Oh, there you go. Whoop. 3 days? Does he only have one arm? You do not badmouth him. Do not badmouth him. He built this from... He pulled scraps of my old fence. Oh, there it was. He pulled scraps of my fence. I said, do you want to go to the hardware store and buy some lumber? And he looked at this pile of scrap wood, rotted fence boards, and he said, nah, we're good. I can do it. You see those? You see these 16-foot? He cut these to make a lap joint. Drilled them. They were 8-foot fence boards. He drilled them out. He used lag screws to butt them together. He like manually chiseled out a lap joint to make a 16-foot post. Every single one of these boards. Anyway. 3 days. Like, God forbid someone comes and builds something for you for free and they take their time. You know? God forbid they don't do it as fast as possible. You guys are the worst. Wow. Like, we didn't have any scaffolding, so he just stuck some boards up here. He stuck some boards and just climbed up here and was standing up here with the damn thing waving in the breeze. It was quite an accomplishment, I assure you. And 3 days was a good amount of time to do it. It's barely standing. There's the other thing. I got to get some metal. I was like, I'm going to get some metal braces and like add them. But I'm real excited to have this in my yard and be able to fly this. So Super psyched. Oh, that would have been so good if I had not gone off to the side. Oh, nope. So I'm just screwing up now. I'm trying to get this dialed in. Oh, nope, nope, didn't like it. All right, I'm done. Nope, not done. Budget obstacle building. I mean, step 1, pay $2,000 to rebuild your fence and then have a bunch of scrap wood left over. Step 2. Yeah. I don't know if this was on a budget. It's pretty cool, though. Anyway, so that's... You're going to be seeing more of that in my yard. Going to be seeing more of that, so... Well, Liftoff at it. I mean, probably. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean, we just hung out for a few days. It wasn't like just working. I didn't pay him anything. The squares those are 16-foot posts. So we went for a 5-foot opening, same as a multi-GP gate. That's a 5-foot opening. The bottom opening is a little taller than 5 foot. William Valentine says, no, William Valentine, the new fence, the lumber, the new boards for the fence and the labor was $2,000. And then after that, I had a bunch of scrap wood that they pulled off the fence that he turned into that structure. Public Name asks, is the Express LRS module on the Zorro excessively power hungry? The 4-in-1 has double the battery life, it seems, if paired with the Happy Model Light module. I don't know if it's excessively power hungry. If they're both at 250 milliwatts, but the Happy Model Light module lasts longer, then that certainly does point to something interesting. Oh, there's King Turkey. King Turkey says, I'm that guy. King Turkey, are you actually Max, or are you just that guy? Oh, no, that's him. Yeah, he did a lot more stuff. Yeah, he pruned out some trees, so we got some more flight lines through the trees. Cleaned up some flight paths. Yeah, y'all are ruthless. Yeah, exactly. Don't pay no attention to him, man. Don't pay no attention to him. They are ruthless. It's true. There goes your bonfire supplies. Mr. Grimm, don't get him started. He wants to burn all my brush, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Can you just put it in a brush pile and let the rabbits and the birds have it? And he's like, please, let me have a brush pile. A burn. Hash asks, does the Vista have better range than the DJI Air unit? My Vista and Air unit both set to 1200 milliwatts, but the Air unit goes to 2 bars about 300 meters away, and the Vista is still 4 bars. No, they have similar range, almost identical range, unless you're in a high multipath environment. So there's something wrong with your Air unit. Like your Air unit isn't actually going to full power or something, would be my guess. Oh, that's the internet for you. Chila Mikhail Tejera asks, if I pre-order the new JB Edition TX16S Mark II, do you have an idea when it's going to come out? I can't tell you that for sure. Unfortunately, with things going on in China, with lockdowns, there have been some delays. My belief is that RadioMaster has all of the parts and is making them in their factory and shipping them to dealers and shipping them soon. Let me ask them. It's the least I can do. Oh, but it's the middle of the night in China, so I won't get an answer. I can't really give you an estimate on that. I think that it will be soon, but I don't know for sure. Angry Pepper FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. Let's get some more super chats done. What would cause a brand new bind and fly Roma V2 to fly to the moon? I was on beta flight 10.8 and 4.2. I mean, did you touch it? You put the props on wrong. You put the props on props out, but it's actually set to props in, or vice versa. That's my number one guess. Props wrong. Because a bind and fly, A bind and fly will almost always come from the factory with the motor direction and the board alignment set correctly. The one thing that you can do to make it fly to the moon is put the props on wrong. So, like, odds are that's what happened. Andre S., thank you for a €2 super chat. Is there a wiki about you? No. I don't think so. Ghost Rider, thank you for a €10 super chat. Is the BMI 270 a bad option for a fast flight controller? No. No. So the BMI 270, there's nothing wrong with it. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of the BMI 270 in the future because the MPU 6000 and the ICM series gyros have gotten super expensive. When we were talking about the JBF7, the new version of the JBF7 that is currently in prototype manufacturing, they said, listen, we're gonna have to put the BMI gyro on it. Is that okay? And I said, well, you know, what's wrong with the ICM gyro? And they were like, well, sure, if you want the price of the board to go up by $20. I was like, oh, ouch. So the ICM gyros and the MPU gyros are so expensive right now that a lot of manufacturers are going to the BMI gyros, which are, for whatever reason, cheaper and more available. Now, the BMI gyro only runs at 3.2 kilohertz, whereas we're used to seeing 8 kilohertz. And some people are like, oh, no, is that a problem? I want more kilohertzes. Take it easy. Chris Rosser just did a rundown of the gyros, the MPU 6000, the ICM 2000 series, and the BMI gyro. And the conclusion was basically that they all perform pretty much the same. However, there is one small difference in the BMI gyro, and that means that the filters need to be set differently. And two things. Number one, there is a preset in the Betaflight 4.3 presets for the BMI gyro. And number two, I was told that Betaflight RC4 has that automatically built in so that if Betaflight detects that you're running a BMI gyro, it will automatically adjust the filters accordingly. That's at least what I thought someone told me about the release notes. So the BMI gyro is fine. And it better be fine because you're going to see a lot more of it in flight controllers coming up. The thing is, guys, the data that we actually care about is all well below, say, 1 kilohertz. Motors are between about 350 and 500 or 600 hertz, maybe a little higher for like a little 1S or something. But basically everything we care about is below about 1 kilohertz. And there's a principle called the Nyquist sampler, the Nyquist-Shannon sampling theorem, which says that you need to sample at double the frequency of the highest frequency you care about. What that means is that you could fly a quadcopter at a minimum of about 2 kilohertz sampling rate. Now, there are some reasons why sampling faster could be desirable. But the bottom line is that 3.2 kilohertz is plenty for what we're trying to do. And the filter performance and so forth all seems fine for the BMI gyro. The only question is, should you be running D-Shot 300 or D-Shot 600? And some people would argue that D-Shot 600 running it faster doesn't make any sense. Other people would argue that running it faster gets the latency down. I think you could go either way there. Xenix says the change in RC4 changes the hardware filters. It won't show in Betaflight filtering. Xenix, do they still need to load the BMI gyro preset under RC4? That's the question. Tyrannosaurus Rex, I disagree. We're talking about flying to the moon. If props are out instead of in, the quad would spin while going to the moon. I disagree, respectfully. In my experience, when you have props in and instead of out, the pitch and roll axis work correctly, but the yaw axis is backwards. And what the quad does is it shakes its head like this, back and forth on the yaw axis. It starts to go right. The flight controller goes, shit, that's not right. Go the other way. And it just keeps doing that. And then it flies to the moon. A spinning quad going to the moon, one prop's going the wrong way. I don't know. Usually it'll flip over in that case. But I think if you have props in and it should be out or vice versa, it will shake back and forth and not spin, and it'll go to the moon. That's my opinion. I agree with you that if props are off or motor direction wrong any other way, it usually doesn't spin. It usually flips over. Still trying to get an answer to that question, Xenix. I see. Xenix says, under RC4, you do not need... He doesn't think that you need to load the BMI gyro preset anymore. They made a change in the driver of the gyro to change the hardware filtering. Okay, great. Blind to Bind 123 in the Discord says, I've been in the FPV community for a few months now, and FPV people are some of the nicest people I've met. You must not have been on Facebook. But yes, that's true. Milan Verma says, why are Cinewhoop such power hogs? My quad just starts falling down if the battery is anything below 14 volts. Because they're usually overweight. They usually are overweight and underpowered because they need to be small but also carry a big GoPro. Guarantee you, if you switch from a Hero 10 to a naked GoPro or something lighter, you'll notice a big difference. William Valentine asks, does enabling motor stop disable air mode? No, the other way. Enabling air mode disables motor stop. Air mode overrides motor stop, not the other way around. Scott Abramachik, thank you for a $4 super chat. Will you ever make a video editing how-to? Will I ever? Do you mean, did you ever? And where can I get a link to that? I have made some, like this one. These two are the ones I would recommend to you, Scott Abramachik. Editing, how I edit an FPV video and how to sync FPV video with Premiere. And then this is really deep. I don't know why. I only made this video because I had discovered something interesting and wanted to share it with you guys, but only like 5 people in the world actually care about this video tip. I would start with this one, Scott Abramachik, editing FPV video start to finish. There you go, buddy. We were caught up on our super chats. Fantastic. Oh, Milan Verma, it's 300 grams with 2.5-inch props. Yeah. That's just those are, it has no GoPro at all, but it's 2.5-inch props. I mean, at that point, your battery alone could do it. John says, I'm planning to take my drone on vacation. The airline rules say you can carry as many lipos as you want below 100 watt hours, but I've heard multiple people say airport security took their batteries. What country are you in, John? In the USA, I have never heard of anybody losing their batteries. I've heard of people losing their batteries when flying internationally. I mean, I would take a printout of the airline, and both the TSA and the airline should have a page on lipos which says the same thing. Have a printout. Be polite. I really haven't run into a problem though. Germany traveling to the UK. Oh, okay. I have no input for you outside the US. I have no idea what situation you might run into internationally. I cannot comment on that. Within the USA, I know what the rules are. Especially traveling internationally, it's a crapshoot, I got to tell you. When I was flying to Europe, I had no problem at all. When I returned from Europe to the United States, they had to call the supervisor, And then the supervisor had to call the gate agent. And I brought up the web page and I was like, here's the rules. And there was a lot of discussion. And then they let me on the plane. But there was they weren't sure. I don't remember what country I was flying out of, to be honest with you. I think it was Belgium. Jacob Blumdahl says, I fried an ESC and now my quad smells like a smoker. Any tips on removing the smell? I guess alcohol? Are BT2 connectors enough for a 2S Lipo? Angry Pepper, it depends entirely on how many amps you're pulling, not the voltage. Roberto Vincentin asks, I'm running Crossfire on the X9D Plus. Is Express LRS higher frequency on TX16S even worth it? Will I notice a difference? No. Chances are that you will not notice, unless you're like a really high-end racer or really sensitive to latency, chances are you won't notice. Now, there are other reasons why you might feel like a TX16 is a desirable radio over an X9D, other than your raw flight performance. But no, you probably won't notice a difference. Most people wouldn't. I mean, just honestly. Zach Lothamer wants suggestions for an entry-level flight bag. Honestly, Zach, here's what I would tell you. Honestly, Zach, if you're trying to get in on a budget, tactical backpacks, you're going to really struggle to do better than something like this. And I say that because I say that as someone who loves FPV bags. My wife bought one of these because she had some stuff she wanted to keep in her truck and you know, like a go bag in her truck. And this thing is, I don't know if it was this exact bag, but it was something like this. This thing is so good. It's so well built. It's sturdy. It's incredibly spacious. It's got MOLLE webbing all over it, so you can stick stuff to it, put a battery strap through here and stick your quad to it. And it's freaking $55. Can you get it in blue? I don't know. There's misc colors. Multicam, black. No blue. Only green, tan, black, and brown. As God intended. God and Arlie Ermy intended. But honestly, any FPV specific, like if we compare this to the race day quads, any FPV specific bag that you buy, and the race day quads bag is a good bag. Don't get me wrong. It's a good bag. But here's the thing. It's $80 and it is FPV specific. It's trying to be an FPV specific bag. But what you trade for that FPV specific feature is they make them in much lower volume. And so they don't get as good a price from the manufacturer. And so you are paying more for, in many ways, a worse backpack. But it's a backpack that's tailored towards FPV. And if that's what you want, this is a great choice. This is not a bad backpack. But this is a better backpack, except it doesn't have those FPV specific features. Does that make sense? So like you're not gonna throw your transmitter in this backpack and just have it jouncing around. You're gonna need a transmitter case of some kind to protect your transmitter, probably. Depends. And so you may want to add $10, $15 to the cost to get a transmitter case. You may need a separate battery case. I don't know. Everybody I know who has a backpack like this, they got all these other little cases that they put all their shit in. And that adds to the price. But I got to tell you, if you really are trying to get in on a budget, I think that if you're okay with this style of backpack, you're going to get a much higher quality backpack for a much lower price because they just sell thousands of these, and Race Day Quads doesn't sell thousands of these. Fair enough? Now, I have to say, the Torval Pitstop Pro, a very good bag. It's in the $200 range. And my absolute favorite right now is the iFlight backpack, which is almost a carbon copy of the Torval Pitstop Pro, but a few things improved. And that's $180. Now, that may not be what a beginner wants to spend, but they're very, very good backpacks as well, just in a totally different price range. What's the other one? iFlight FPV drone backpack. Not iFlight. There's a Torval Urban Carrier backpack. How much is that? I think it's cheaper. $159. Stingy had this. I wasn't a fan of it. Some people are gonna love it. I kind of don't like. Why would I want a bag with this junk hanging off? I don't know. Yeah, let me get a fanny pack for my backpack. That's going to look so cool. And then the inside is all open, but in this really weird, I don't know. It's not my style. So my opinion is that a bag like the Torval or the iFlight that's modeled after a camera bag you're not going to need a case. I don't have a case for any of my stuff that I put in my backpack. I just put it in there and the inserts protect it. And that's the advantage to me. You look at something like the Mr. Steel backpack. Oh, it's Ethics. I've talked about this before. The Ethics backpack is it's a good looking backpack. Steel uses it, obviously, so it can't be, we got any shots of the inside. Are you for, okay, thank God. But if you look at the inside, can I see the inside? Can I see the inside? No. Are you joking? For real, though? Okay. The inside is just a big, open, capacious, what's the advantage of this? It lays flat, I guess, and it opens up flat. But, I mean, you're still going to need cases for everything, for your goggles, for your controller. And that's how Steel uses it, too. And the price, $150. That's a lot for what you're getting compared to, if you were going to get something like this or the Torval Urban bag, I would just pay $65 for a tactical backpack, get a better backpack, and you're going to need to figure out your organization anyway. If you want to spend $150 or $200 on a bag, I would get one with internal dividers because then you're actually paying for something. Anyway, there you go. That's my take. McConnell Studios says, I've been using that Torval Urban backpack for 4 months and I love it. That's true. Some people are obviously going to love different things than me. Any risk? Halibutification asks, is there any risk of Lipos burning out while not charging, just standing on its own after flight? Yeah. The way that will happen is that there is some internal damage that has not made itself aware to you. And then it slowly burns itself out from the inside and lights on fire. The risk is very low, but it's never zero. Thank you, G, for a 79 pence super chat, and Say Yay for a $20 super chat. Thank you so much for the contribution. Inside the Mind of Matt says, I could swear I saw you talking about issues with Crossfire and Betaflight 4.3 having failsafe issues. Wondering if this was addressed in RC4. I don't think it was addressed, Matt. It needs to be addressed by Crossfire, by TBS. TBS has released firmware 6.17 for the Crossfire system, which rolls it back from Crossfire v3 to Crossfire v2, because Crossfire v3 is what has the problem. The current recommendation is if you are running Betaflight 4.3, you need to be on 6.17 and let TBS figure out the failsafe issue. All right. Is Crossfire v3 only a Betaflight issue? ZFPV, as far as I can tell, the problem with Crossfire v3 causing failsafes only came up on Betaflight 4.3, but I don't know that for a fact. DC says there's a commit message between RC3 and RC4 that fixes the issue. DC, if I'm going to take your word on that, DC. I wasn't digging through the GitHub. So DC says the Crossfire bug is fixed, and if that's true, then it would be safe to run 6.16 and use Crossfire v3. Jared Gundry says, are you all done with Crossfire and only on Express LRS now? No, Jared, like I talked about at the beginning of the stream, I'm still using Ghost and Express LRS on my personal builds. I still have a ton of Crossfire on Bind and Flies, though. I'm not putting Crossfire on any new builds. I'm happy to be in the 2.4 gigahertz frequency band with the smaller antennas and so forth. What changes does Crossfire v3 bring over v2? Asks Rob Schlicht. Rob, I think the number... am I right? I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure. I think that Crossfire v3 brings the faster sampling rate, so you can do 500 hertz sampling, and 12-bit channels, which is also necessary for 500 hertz sampling. But I am not actually 100% sure about that. So... It's Blenty in the chat says they changed a ton of the Betaflight code for failsafe and ended up breaking more stuff. I've been following multiple cases. So Blenty, does that mean that RC4 is not going to be the last because it introduced other bugs? Up South FPV says, I barely reverse plugged a 1S into my Firefly Nano. And then I fried a FET. Yeah, I hate to tell you this, Up South, but barely plugging it in is all you need to fry something. A microsecond and a whole second. I mean, it could have been worse, but you still fried it. Is it worth repairing a fried FET on this all-in-one? Well, Up South FPV, one way to look at it is you got nothing to lose. It's fried, so if you want to try to desolder the FET and put a new FET on, more power to you. I know, like, somebody like LeaveU FPV could do that in his sleep. He has the tools, he has the skills. If you don't have a hot air station, I think you're probably going to fail. No offense. It would take a much higher level of skill to do it without a hot air station. If you have a hot air station, then I would say look up a tutorial on replacing a FET with a hot air station, watch how they do it, and give it a try, because the board is already ruined. So what's it going to cost you? Toady RZ. Blunty's in the Discord. I don't know. If you think Blunty thinks he's too good for anybody, I think you're just trolling. Blunty's a pretty humble and humble guy. He's just probably not keeping up with two chats at once like me. So, Blunty, people in the YouTube chat are like, where's Blunty? Where's Blunty today? Neo Flyer and Toady RZ, they miss you, dude. Vinny Shipman, thank you for a $2 super chat. Could you show 3 drones on the iFlight bag front? Toady RZ, you're full of shit. I don't know why you're trolling, dude. That's nonsense. That's just nonsense. I assume you're trolling, and I'm going to ignore you. Vinny Shipman wants 3 drones on the iFlight bag. Okay, Vinny. Okay. There we go. Alrighty, so now you can see that. Okay. So here's 3 drones on the front of the iFlight bag. The first thing I want to show you is that for the bottom one, I usually loop it under the arm and over the top so that it can't fall down any further. Otherwise, it'll sag down below the level of the backpack and be annoying. The second drone sits on top here, and the strap just goes around it and lets it sit kind of resting there. And then the third one slaps on top, and the third one goes over it. So that's how that goes. Does that answer your question? That's how I do it. So no, it won't hold 3, like literally 3, 1, 2, 3 on top of each other. You got to stack them. Are they all 7-inch? No, they're 5-inch. These are all 5-inch. Gotta click that sucker in there. There we go. Got it. And that's how... I mean, I probably would not have props on all 3 of them, carrying them on the outside of the bag like this. I would just put... I might have props on 1 if I might have to jump and fly immediately after getting wherever I was going. But I probably would just have props off. In fact, I might have props off all 3, because the props sitting out like that can be annoying and cut things and get in the way. So that's how that would go. Okay. Matt Lindsay, thank you for a $10 super chat. I replaced a Tiny Hawk from my child. I forgot to edit the switches. The child panicked and couldn't disarm when it was flying into the ground upside down. Still flies, but has a vibration every few seconds. I mean, did you replace the props? Could it be a bad prop? Matt Lindsay? I would check the props first. Bees Knees, thank you for a $5 super chat. And Scott Abramachik, thank you for a $2 super chat. All right. Let's see. Everybody's noting that I had props off there. Roberto Vincentin, thank you for no super chat. Thank you for nothing, Robert. No, sorry, I was on autopilot there. Roberto Vincentin asks, 1,000 watt charger with 10 batteries paralleled, or multiple chargers with fewer batteries paralleled on each? Roberto, if money is no object, then get 10 chargers and charge 1 battery apiece. That is the simplest and safest setup. The only reason to parallel charge is because it is cheaper to buy one big charger and charge in parallel than to buy 10 small chargers. So, price no object, buy 10 chargers. Buy 10 150 watt chargers. 100 watt, maybe even 80 watts would be enough to charge a typical FPV battery. Buy 10 of them. Charge, don't do any parallel charging. Just plug in, go. Plug in, go. Parallel charging always adds risk, but all of FPV is about all of life is about managing risk. So for some people, the risk of parallel charging is worth the payoff of not having to have more than one charger. The other disadvantage is that with 10 chargers, if you're charging 10 packs, you got to go beep, 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 charge, beep, 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 charge. And it's freaking annoying sometimes. Whereas with parallel charging, you just go plug, 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 beep, charge. And then sometimes your house burns down. Oh, who's got time for that? So, you just have to decide where that is. Bee's Knees, $5 should get you, I think, 100 characters in the super chat. You just didn't type anything, as far as I can tell. But if you just type your question, I'll read it. Bee's Knees, I don't have a question associated. I don't have any text associated with your super chat. Most likely, I think you just didn't type it. Yeah, but you have to type the message before you pay, Bee's Knees. You have to type the message before you pay, my friend. Look. You hit the super chat. Okay, now you pick how much you're going to pay, and then you type the message. And then you hit buy and send. As soon as you hit buy and send, it's gone. That's how you do it. Come on, YouTube. YouTube should give you YouTube should say, did you mean to send this without a message? Bee's Knees, I'm still looking for your message. Mr. Grimm says, is that as easy if all three have props on? If all three have props on, it's a little bit more cumbersome, but still basically works the same. Hugh Gellin says, I've heard Ciotti doesn't like Lua scripts. What are the cons of Lua scripts? Only a little bit of a hassle to set up. I don't know what else the downside would be. Jelmer Hemstra, good to see you again. I have an X8 Cinelifter, 2 identical 4-in-1 ESCs. Will updating them with BL HeliSuite work, or should I do only one at a time? No, the updating the ESC firmware happens through the motor signal wire. So if you have an Octo with 8 outputs from the flight controller, in other words, if you are using an X8 mixer with 8 D-Shot motor outputs, then yes, you can update them all at the same time. But if you have done something like a coaxial X8 with a quad-X mixer, no, you cannot do it. Does that make sense? Bee's Knees, I'm still looking for your message. Just put it in the regular chat. Oh, he says Bee's Knees. Where's your message, Bee's Knees? Didn't let you send. Oh, here we go. I got it. Bee's Knees, thank you for a $5 super chat. RXSR and TX16S with Betaflight 4.3. Channel's correct and bind is good, but the sticks just make the graph spaz out and the drone spins in circles. Your channel mapping is incorrect, Bee's Knees. That's my guess. So, Bee's Knees, what you need to do is go into the PID tuning. No, go into the receiver tab. In the receiver tab, find the channel map parameter. Channel map right here. And rearrange the AETR to make sure that your channels are correct. That roll is roll, pitch is pitch, yaw is yaw, and throttle is throttle. Move your sticks up and down and rearrange AETR, RETA. Just type the letters. right? However you need to do it to get your channels to be mapped correctly. That's most likely what's going on. The flight controller is confused. It thinks your throttle stick is your yaw stick, and that's why it's freaking out like that. All right, we got it. We got the super chat. We got it. Olander, thank you for a $5 super chat. Thanks for your help over the years, JB. What's your target or ideal weight for your 5-inch 6S quads? I'm trying to get down to 600 grams. Olander, with a GoPro on it, I think that 750 grams is the top of what I would consider to be enjoyable for me to fly. I've flown 750 gram 5 inches with a big GoPro on it and a big battery, and I think they fly way better at even just 700 grams and way better at 650 grams. But 750, if it's over 750, I'm going to be like, that is a chunker. If it's over 800, it's really a chunker. So with a GoPro, I think that 750 would be like, you really need to be under there. 700 that's pretty damn good. And then anything below 700 to me is getting in the, you really have to work to get it down to that weight. 650, somewhere around 600 is where, in my opinion, you are starting to really have to work and make a lot of compromises to get down to that weight with a GoPro, So, and if you're below 600 with a GoPro, it seems likely that you're making some compromises in terms of durability that are going to affect you. Now, every time I talk about quadcopter weight, there are people out there who are like, what are you talking about? All my 5 inches are 600 grams, and that's heavy. I can get them down to 550 if I really try. And I'm like, okay. I mean, if you really got to work to get there. So I think around 700 grams with a GoPro is a pretty good place to be for a 5-inch. Siadi, what's your target weight for a 5-inch, man, with a GoPro? Siadi's in the chat. He likes small things. Sorry. Bannister Post, thank you for a $7 super chat. When using a flight controller for gyro flow data, is there a way to trigger the second flight controller to run gyro logging when arming? Yeah. Bannister Post, here's what you need to do. Connect the receiver signal wire to both flight controllers. You with me? Literally solder 2 wires to the receiver, and one wire goes to one flight controller, one goes to the other. Now, both flight controllers are going to see the receiver signal. That's not going to work with Crossfire V3 because of the frickin' baud rate negotiation thing, will it? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. This is how we used to do it, though. Then set up the arming mode on both flight controllers. When you arm, both flight controllers will think that they're armed. Only one of them will actually be flying the quad. That's how you do it. Olander says, I'm not as bad as I thought. So first of all, Siadi says he shoots for 610 grams with a session 5. Yes. Olander says, I'm not as bad as I thought then. Everybody's bragging about sub 600 builds. A sub 600 5-inch is very hard. Especially with a GoPro. It's very hard. Like racing drones, people's racing builds come in around 500 grams. Maybe a little less. But they're not carrying a GoPro. A GoPro immediately adds 100 grams, 80 grams if you have a session, and 170-ish grams, 150 to 170 grams if you don't have a session. It's really got me thinking hard about the DJI Action 2, because I would like my 5-inch builds to be lighter, and GoPros have only gotten heavier. So Siadia says, and I agree, sub 600 comes with a lot of compromises, especially in terms of durability. All those guys who are saying, I fly 600 grams 5-inch and It's fine. I guarantee their frame is not as durable as a frame that weighs 30 grams more. Like, I mean, somewhere out there, there's the exception that proves the rule or whatever, but... Ooh, Toady RZ has a good question. Session 5 or Naked Hero 6? Which for a Cinewhoop? For a Cinewhoop, I'd go Naked Hero 6. I don't like naked cams. They're a hassle. But Naked Hero 6 is the way to go, in my opinion. Family Guyver, I agree with you that the Hero 7 is the current unsung all-star for freestyle flying. The Hero 7 has pretty good image quality. Hyper Smooth is not as good as the 8, but who cares? Don't use Hyper Smooth. Just use Gyroflow or something. Does Hero 7 work with Gyroflow, or is it one of the ones that doesn't work? I can never remember. I think 7 is one of the ones that doesn't work with Gyroflow. Oh, that might be bad. Don't stabilize your freestyle videos anyway, you numbnuts. Yeah, you can get Hero 7 for about $200. No, maybe even insurance. Did I have insurance on my Hero 7? I might. GoPro Hero 7. We want the Hero 7 Black. Hero 7 Black. See all buying options. Oh, that's no way. I wouldn't pay $300 for a Hero 7 Black. No, sir. No, sir. What's going on here? What's the Hero 7 Black? $300. Wow. That's sad. You used to be able to get them for about $200. There's $284 for a Hero 8. But the Hero 8 is starting to get into that size. That was when they started getting heavier. Hero 9 got even heavier. Hero 9, $395, yeah. Used to be able to find Hero 7 Blacks for around $200. And that was a real hell of a deal. Battery delete on the 9 and 10 is a good way to go. That's true. Just use USB power. But I got to tell you, the weight of the 8, the 9, and then the 10 has really got me looking again at the DJI Action 2. And I'll be honest, it was the fact that Stinger Swarm and Phantom FPV fly that camera that made me reconsider it. When I flew it, I thought image quality is okay. File management is a little bit of a hassle. Price is insane, $500 for the Action 2. But Stingy was like, it's durable enough. He's making it work. If he can make it work. And it's like 100 grams lighter than a Hero 10. And that's a big difference. Anyway. Vicanair FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. Just got the Flywheel Explorer LR. Any advice on setting up return to home in beta flight in order to prevent flyaways? Well, test. Always make sure that you've got, what is the minimum? 8 satellites locked before you fly. Whatever the minimum is, 7, 6. I think 6 is the absolute minimum. I don't know what they ship that quad set to. Always make sure that you've got sufficient satellites locked before you fly. Always make sure that your home direction is correct. Like as you're flying away, when you first take off, glance at your direction home arrow and make sure it's pointing back at you. And do a little circle and make sure it rotates correctly to point to you. Right? Make sure your distance to home seems sane. And just watch your satellites, because if you find that you're consistently getting 8 or 9 satellites locked, you'll probably have a good experience with beta flight return to home. But a lot of quads have trouble keeping the minimum number of sats locked. And then make sure you're a minimum of, I think it's 100 meters by default. You cannot activate GPS rescue within 100 meters of your home point, or the quad will just disarm. So if your distance to home is not at least 100 meters, don't do it. But Sander DeBronner has the best advice. If you really need return to home, use iNav. Use iNav. Betaflight return to home is GPS rescue. There's a reason they don't call it return to home, and that's because it's not a properly fully developed return to home. It's oh shit, I'm about to lose my quad. Let's try to save it. That's better than nothing. Do you think HD0 will ever be as good as DJI? In terms of resolution and penetration, no. But it's good in its own way, which some people find it to be superior. JWWFPV says the DJI Action 2 is $339 right now for the power combo. JWW, I didn't say it was $500 today. I said when it first came out, the reason I wasn't as big on it is that it was $500. That's what I think I said. I know that the price has come down now. You didn't used to be able to get the power combo. It wasn't available. We are coming towards the end of the stream. It's 2:46 p.m. We're going to be going till 3 o'clock. So we got about 15 more minutes. After this stream is over, Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming. Are you streaming today, Ciotti, or are you still working? Is he streaming today? Post that link, Ciotti, if you're streaming today. Doshlik98 says, I'm having an issue setting my 3-position switch on aux1 as arming switch for Express LRS. Doshlik, Express LRS requires that aux1 is a 2-position switch. aux1 cannot be a 2-position switch, a 3-position switch, and armed must be high position. Armed must be high. That is mandatory for Express LRS. You cannot have anything else than that for arming. Jackalope FPV says, I have a friend who's considering shaving their head as life has been unfair to them in the hair department. How often do you shave your head? Do you have to moisturize more often? Okay, so first of all, I don't moisturize anything on my body. That's not my... nothing against moisturizing. It's just not where my mind goes when I think about self-care. I find that about once a week is how long, when I start to notice, oh, I should cut my hair again. I find about once a week is how often I shave. I shave in the shower. If you have a steam-proof mirror, that's a great way to do it. So, that's my take. Jeff Herzog asks, how important is the accelerometer in Betaflight? It's mandatory for auto level mode. And there are a couple other features that use it. Like GPS rescue requires the accelerometer. There are a couple other features that use it, like the racing launch mode. But for the most part, it's necessary for auto level mode. If you only fly Acro mode, then it's not that necessary. Nope. Somebody's flying outside. Mark Frank says, can I connect an open logger for SD card black box without a free UART? No, you need a UART. That's the whole point of the open logger. It needs a UART. There's Ciotti posting a link to his stream. He is streaming today. Falling in love with DJI. Oh, Ciotti's been corrupted by DJI. He's gone over to the dark side. Live flying gig recap. Ciotti had some work this week. He's back home now, though, I guess. Sander DeBronner says, I'm using a 3-position switch on aux1 to arm on Express LRS, but it's only recognized as a 2-way. Right. Express LRS will only treat aux1 as a 2-position switch, ever. It's a 1-bit field. So if you map aux1 to a 3-position switch, yeah, but it'll only act like a 2-position channel. Jamie Baldy, thank you for 449 pounds. Can you send an EdgeTX file for the Nazgul using Crossfire and the Horus X10S? No. I'm sorry. I appreciate your donation, Jamie. I cannot do that. That would I don't have a Horus X10S, first of all, to even set that up for you. So I can refer you to tutorials for how to set that up for yourself, or I can even try to help walk you through it, but I cannot just send you that file. Frankly, you just got to learn how to do it, man. I'm sorry to say. Cooper Lane, thank you for a $5 super chat. What would you choose for a Cinewhoop capable of lifting a 230-gram phone for cinematic shoots with better quality? 230 grams. Wow. Can you... Okay, I mean, that's your dream. I'm not going to shit on it. So a typical, like a 3.5-inch Cinewhoop can lift a 200-gram GoPro. So it could lift a 230-gram phone. Maytech ProTech 35, GepRC, Cinelog 35, or I think your idea about an X8 is not bad. The other thing you could do, Cooper, is you could build a 5-inch quad and put prop guards on it, and essentially, like, I think at the 230-gram range, you're looking at a 4 or a 5-inch quad, more than a 3.5. But if you insist on it being a 3.5, I think something like a ProTech 35 or a Cinelog 35 could do it, or a custom X8 would have plenty of power, but yeah, the battery life might be shorter. Max Wild, thank you for 10 euros. Should I discard my 4S Lipo battery if the cell voltage is different? The battery is almost new. There is 0.20 difference in one cell. No, just charge it. Charge it, use balance mode, and it will balance it. Don't discard it. There's nothing wrong with that. Just that one thing doesn't mean anything. Gustavo Scanzerla, thank you for 20 Brazilian reais, I believe. Thank you for all you do for our community. Really enjoy the live streams. Thank you for coming out. Best regards from Brasilia. Thank you so much. Squirrely, thank you for a $5 super chat. Can, and if so, how do you customize the C button and roller buttons on the DJI V1 controller? You cannot. They are, I don't know what the hell they're for, to be honest with you. I don't think you can. I think they're theoretically for a DJI drone, but what DJI drone works with the DJI V1 controller? I could be wrong. I have to tell you, I could be wrong. It's possible that somewhere in the DJI menus, there's an option to customize the C button and the roller buttons, and the chat is going to jump up and be like, Bardwell, got it wrong again. I don't think you can do that. I certainly have never done it, and I can't think of a place where you would do that. So that's my provisional answer, Squirrely. Hectectica, thank you for a $5 super chat. Any opinions on the Catalyst Machine Work Whoopmaster 4-inch whoop frame? So that's one of the few options for a 4-inch whoop if you need heavy lift. And Catalyst Machine Works makes good stuff. So that's what I would say about that. Yeah. PSFPV asks, can I set up one model in EdgeTX and bind that to different Ghost receivers? Yes, you can, PSFPV. You can bind the same model to as many receivers as you want, as long as you don't change the receiver number parameter in the model setup screen. Only plug in one at a time, though, the one that you actually want to fly. But that's how I do. I have one model for all my Ghost quads. Alrighty. Can you recommend a good training or learning freestyle quad? Darwin FPV Tiny Ape, asks Jan Engelen. That's an okay one. Darwin FPV, the Tiny Ape is their new mini one. I think 3-inch is about as small as I'd want to go for freestyle practice. Much below 3-inch, it starts to fly a little different. You can still freestyle it, but it's a little bit of a different experience. So, alrighty, guys. We got 5 minutes left. The Tiny Hawk Freestyle is also a good one. Thank you, TS13FPV, for that suggestion. The Tiny Hawk Freestyle is a 3-inch freestyle quad that's pretty solid. Zacharias Trianos, new to the hobby and addicted to my channel. Oh, thank you so much, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it. DRL or Orca's FPV Skydive? They feel very different. I mean, FPV Skydive is free. DRL is not free. So that, to me, is going to be the big deal breaker. I like the physics in FPV Skydive. I think for 5-inch freestyle, I like the physics in FPV Skydive better than DRL. Although I think I'm going to hurt some feelings if I say that. Not that DRL is bad, just, you know, my sort of gut check when I first flew it was that the FPV Skydive had more natural feeling physics to me. Thank you, Chris Leyland, for a $20 super chat. I appreciate your videos and how much you've helped me in the hobby. Love the new Betaflight series. Excellent. I'm really enjoying going through it. What do you think about the Recon 5? I love the Tiny Hawk. The Recon line is pretty solid if you want a lightweight. I mean, Dave C's involvement means it's pretty well designed. All right, guys. It is 4 minutes till 3 o'clock. And get just a couple more minutes for questions. If anybody wants to try to sneak one in. Can you import OpenTX backups to EdgeTX? Yes, you can, Anthony DiStefano. What you need to do, Anthony DiStefano, is save the file in OpenTX Companion and open it in EdgeTX Companion, and then write it to the radio. That will work. I got a question here from T418L. My 3-inch quad flips out when taking off only when I set air mode to always on. If it'll hover with air mode off, I don't see why it wouldn't hover with air mode on. Like, it can't be something like motor direction or board alignment or props or anything. That's a weird one. Mike Bergman says, would you use 12 gauge for an 8-inch Macro America running 6S? Mike, but the bottom line is I'd use whatever Catalyst Machine Works uses. I would think that 12 gauge for a battery lead would be sufficient. I would think it would be sufficient. 10 gauge is massive. You could, Mike, another thing you could do is you could look at the battery you're going to buy. And if the battery comes with 10 gauge, then you would think, well, okay, I don't want to be the weakest link. And you might go 10 gauge. But for an 8-inch quad, there's a fair chance that your ESC is only sized for 12 gauge. I think 12 gauge would be fine. Alrighty. Paris Delaney, the new DJI FPV goggle doesn't have canvas mode. That leak was from a team that has rooted the goggle and is working on getting it working. That is not DJI who did that. That is some wonderful, wonderful hackers who are trying to get us canvas mode. Nick Hayes says XT90 8 gauge for 12S and up only, in my opinion. Nick Hayes, respectfully, the size of the wire depends on the amp draw, not the voltage. So depending on your motor KV and other parameters, a 12S quad could be pushing much fewer amps than a 6S quad doing the same amount of work. Higher voltage may tolerate a smaller wire because it's delivering more power with fewer amps. It just depends on how many amps you're pulling. Alrighty, guys, that is it. We're coming to the end of the stream. Aaron Ciotti has been posting the link to his stream. He's going to be streaming starting at 3. I will see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. and throughout the week with more great content. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to my patrons over in the Discord server. If you want to join my patrons and join the Discord server and get podcasts of my live streams, then you can become a patron. There's a link in the video description to patreon.com where you can subscribe to me for as little as $2 a month or more if you feel like I've earned it. If today's the day where you go, damn, I get a lot out of Bardwell's content, then you can join the Patreon. It sure does mean a lot. And if today's not the day, I'm going to keep making content and you keep watching it, and maybe that day will come. That's it, though. That's it for today. Have a great stream, Ciati, and I will see you guys on the next.